Hey, welcome back, everyone. You know that moment right before your shift starts, or right when you're gathering your gear to head out to an operation? Everything makes sense. You've got your assignment, you know who's got your back, and you have a real good idea of what success should look like at the end of it. As a veteran or first responder, your time in service has had that kind of clarity. The uniform gives you an identity. The assignment gives you a role, and the mission gives you a purpose, even when you're exhausted. But if you're honest with yourself, there's a quiet voice that pops up during those slow moments. It's that heavy realization, and maybe sometimes you don't want to admit this, but it scares you. It scares you that eventually this ride ends. And when people talk to you about what to do, they always say, make sure you've got a plan. Don't wait until the last minute. Be sure to square yourself away. No, that's the basis of this podcast. So you might sit down and try to map out what comes next. But then you hit an invisible wall. Because there's a much harder question you haven't had to ask. Probably in quite a while. Especially if these careers were all you ever wanted to do, and you've been at it since you were still trying to develop your frontal cortex. It's important, and you have to ask yourself, what do I actually want to do after this? That's definitely the hard part, because we're experts at executing orders and reaching an objective, but we can be quite pitiful when it comes to formulating our own personal target package. When a large portion of your life has been about serving something bigger than yourself, figuring out what you personally want can kind of feel weird. It almost feels selfish or worse. It feels terrifying because without what you have now, you might not be entirely sure who you are. However, if you're feeling that insecurity right now, you're not broken and you're not behind. You're just facing a very real choice you've not had to make in a while. This time it's about how you actually figure out what you want your life to look like when the ride stops. But first, a quick break to acknowledge a sponsor of the podcast. As a first responder, control isn't optional. It's how you do your job. But when it comes to buying or refinancing a home, most lenders don't get your world. Police Mortgage does. They specialize in working with first responders, walking you through the process, breaking down your options, and helping you lock in competitive rates without the runaround. Take control of your financial future with people who have your back. Visit policemortgage.com or call 312-499-8878. Police Mortgage, for first responders who are second to none. Think about how we solve problems in our careers. When the orders come in for an operation or that call comes in for that emergency, you don't stand around contemplating, how do I feel about this? You look at the situation, you assess the task, and you execute. You're trained to disconnect your personal feelings so that you can get the job done. And that being able to detach, in a way, is a superpower while you're doing these jobs. But the truth is, that same superpower will most likely blindside you when you're trying to figure out your next career. When you treat choosing a new career like a tactical problem, you're going to default to what's easy to measure. You look at what your skill sets are. You tell yourself, okay, I know how to manage logistics. I can run a team or an operation. I can handle a high-stress situation. So I should just find a civilian job that does that. And for the most part, it's pretty much how we do it. You find a job, the paychecks start coming in, and initially, everything might feel fine. But then, get some miles down the road, and a weird kind of empty feeling can creep in. Yes, you're doing the work and you're getting paid, but you might also start feeling disconnected. Basically, you might end up going through the motions, wondering why a job that you're clearly qualified for can feel so unfulfilling or difficult. This is what happens most often when you choose a job based on what you can do, not what you actually care about. When you leave service, You aren't just changing where you report for duty. You'll be stepping out of a culture that gives you a sense of purpose, a tribe, and a powerful reason to be committed every single day. If you don't intentionally build those things into your next choice, no amount of money or fancy corporate job titles are going to fill that gap. So then how do you actually decide? You have to stop looking at job descriptions and start looking at your own internal baseline. You have to do recon of yourself. And it starts with identifying your core values, not your technical skills. Ask yourself, what actually drove you to these careers or drives you in your career? Is it the high stakes intensity? Is it mentoring younger team members and watching them succeed? Is it the challenge of working complex cases? Or is it simply the brotherhood with the person sitting next to you? Those drivers aren't technical skills. They're human needs. If your favorite part of the job is teaching and developing people, taking a high-paying corporate role where you just sit in a cubicle all day analyzing spreadsheets is going to crush your spirit, no matter how good you are at managing data. And the second part of this is accepting that your identity is going to take a hit, and you have to prepare for it now. People ask you today, what do you do? And your response most likely commands respect. That status of being a veteran or first responder carries weight. And whether you realize it or not, your ego relies on that weight. But when you transition, that title goes away. And if you try to pick your next career just to maintain that same level of status or respect, you're likely setting yourself up for a significant letdown. You'll end up chasing titles or companies that sound impressive at family gatherings or on social media, instead of picking an organization or creating your own space where you actually enjoy the daily grind. You have to be willing to strip away the ego and ask the tough question. If nobody cared what my title is, what kind of work would I actually want to spend my next years doing? And then finally, you have to look at the human aspect. In essence, the tribe. In our worlds, trust isn't a buzzword. It's operational currency. You know who has your back, and you know the standards of the people around you. In the civilian world, organizational cultures can vary dramatically. Some companies have incredible, tight-knit teams that are bonded and have trust in each other, while others are completely transactional, where everyone is just looking out for themselves. So when you're evaluating potential career paths, don't just look at the salary or the benefits package. Look at the people. Look at the organization as a whole. Basically, are they a tribe you'll actually want to be part of? Do they share the values you care about? Or is the culture toxic or disconnected? Because it doesn't matter how great the job description seems or what the pay is. You're probably going to end up feeling isolated. However, on a side note, if you want more on this topic, along with more information on transition planning and preparation, I put out a weekly newsletter. Check out the link in the show notes to sign up. I know you'll get some benefit from it. Now, here's where the rubber hits the road and where it might get easy to check out because it can be uncomfortable. To this point, it's been about internal reconnaissance, values, and personal identity. But when you actually sit down to put choosing into action, a psychological wall might pop up for you. The wall is the comfort of routine. Right now, even on your worst days. You know, those days when the calls are nonstop, leadership is making decisions that seem to cause more headaches than happiness, or your body hurts and you're dragging from lack of sleep. With all of that, you understand the rules of the game. The stress is now familiar. The BS, it's predictable. And there's a strange kind of comfort in an environment where you've mastered it, even when you know it probably is also burning you out. As a veteran or first responder, when you start looking to decide your next career, you're forced to step away from that familiar stress and take on a good amount of uncertainty. Whereas your brain, which is wired for survival and risk mitigation, it hates uncertainty. So what does your mind do? It wants to protect you. It creates a trap. Call it a tactical distraction. Instead of doing the hard, uneasy work of figuring out what you actually want, you'll throw yourself into busy work that can feel productive. You might do mindless stuff like tweaking your resume again, scrolling through job postings, or considering more training and certifications that you probably don't really need. It's not that doing any of this isn't important or that it doesn't have its place, but it's easier to focus on the perimeter instead of looking in the figurative mirror. Because the thing is, how are you curating the best resume or looking for job openings if you don't really know the job you want? Basically, you're fooling yourself into thinking by saying, "Hey, look, I'm working on my transition." But in reality, you're just running on a hamster wheel and not getting anywhere. You think that you're executing, but you have no clear operational objective. The actual turning point in deciding your next career happens the moment you stop hiding behind activities that are allowing you to not decide and confront the real issue, which is most likely that you're scared of making the wrong choice. And it's okay to be apprehensive. It's normal to be afraid that you're going to pick a new path, step into a new situation, and then realize either you're no good at it or it doesn't really like you being there. Maybe you're afraid of looking incapable, starting over at the bottom, or picking a job that might look good on paper or good for your family, but makes you miserable. And because that fear can be very heavy, most of us make one of two mistakes. First mistake is what we'll call the desperation landing. You get so anxious about the clock ticking down on your transition that you take the first offer that comes along. You don't evaluate the culture, and you don't care if the work aligns with your values. You just grab the life raft because you're so afraid of drowning. Or worst case scenario, you get forced into a transition and you're unprepared to make a smooth exit, so you have to take whatever's available. The second mistake is the copy and paste transition. You see what jobs other coworkers and teammates have moved on to, and you just copy their playbook. If they went to work for a defense contractor or became a corporate security manager, you assume that, well, if it worked for them, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do too. You default to someone else's objective because you haven't taken the time to define your own. So if you want to break out of those traps, you have to execute a shift in your mindset before taking a step forward. You have to start giving real value to your next career, not treating it like it's an afterthought of this career. As a veteran or a first responder, commitment is absolute. You raised your right hand, swore an oath, and for many of us, locked in it for years. You stick it out through bad bosses, garbage schedules, and generally brutal conditions, because that's what these jobs demand. On a side note, I don't believe you should ride out these careers just for that pension check, but that's another episode. But really, your next career doesn't have to be the final chapter of your life. It could simply be an operational phase. Possibly just a stepping stone that gives you a rest point when you get out of uniform. Or it might just give you a space to adapt to civilian life while keeping food on the table. Yes, you should still put quality effort into considering what you really want to do after this. But when you realize that your next career choice doesn't have to be the thing you do for the next 30 years, the pressure drops. Remember, your next job might not be your perfect job, but it will, in all likelihood, not be perfect if you don't have a clear idea of what's perfect for you. You need to find out what aligns with your core values and moves you towards the kind of life you actually want to live. And because of that, you're required to take ownership of your narrative. Our worlds have assigned your objectives, and you've grown comfortable operating in this space. From this point on, nobody's coming to hand you your orders for your next objective. Nobody is going to assign you your next target. If you wait around for someone else to tell you what you should do with the rest of your life, you'll end up executing somebody else's plan. Likely operating in an environment that you hate and wondering where it all went wrong. You have to step up, and it starts by making the conscious decision that you will not let uncertainty or convenience choose your next career for you. You're going to do the hard work and make a deliberate choice based on who you are and who you want to be. Let's take another quick break to recognize a sponsor of the podcast. There's a moment in life when you realize it was never about you. Grind, spelled GRND, is different. There's no I in it on purpose, because the mindset was never about ego. It's about the mission. Started by a former Army Ranger, it's not about where you are. It's about how you show up. Different lives, different pressures, but the same mindset. Grind isn't clothing you wear just to look good. It's a reminder of why you keep going when it gets tough, and you keep putting in the work when no one's watching. For the early mornings, the late nights, the reps that no one sees. This isn't just fashion, it's fuel. Because real work isn't loud, real effort doesn't need applause, and real purpose doesn't quit. Head on over to thegrndcollective.com and use the promo code TRANSITION15 for 15% off your order. So where does this leave you when you head back for your next shift? It leaves you standing right at the edge of quiet. When there's that lull in the operational tempo or the calls for service, you're a person who has to live in the life you build after the uniform comes off. Nobody expects you to have something definitive today. You don't need to create a concise 5-year plan, and you certainly don't need to pretend you have all the answers. But what you do need to do is stop treating your future like a problem that belongs to somebody else. That person who walks out the gate for the last time, that's still you. So get comfortable with the silence. Get curious about what's sitting underneath the identity that you've created, and pay attention to what actually makes you feel driven when nobody's watching. Because deciding on your next career isn't about finding a quick replacement for your uniform. It's about doing the hard work of realizing that your skills are just tools in a toolbox, and figuring out who you are when the calls stop. You get to decide where you want to build next, and the only thing that steps across the line into the rest of your life is you. Give that person an objective to walk towards. I appreciate you staying until the end. Staying all the way through helps the engagement ratings. As always, I want your comments. I'm asking you, as always, be honest with me. Tell me what you like. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. I can't make any changes unless you tell me what you need. Also, please share the podcast. Share it with anybody who you think would benefit and or enjoy it. And if you're not already, please follow the podcast wherever you're getting this episode. Stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.